Jeff stood on the passenger side, and he could hear what sounded like two of them were running through the brush coming toward him. And Jeff had said something on the lines, "You step out, I'm going to fill you full of lead."
Oh yeah, see, that's the stuff right there, buddy.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Bigfoot Researchers Journal. Today we're going to continue with the Donnie Miller story. We've got a few more films too, man. I'm going to do my best to kind of keep laying this thing out here. I'm going through footage, using what I can. I was there to actually investigate and corroborate from a research standpoint Donnie's encounters. And what I can tell you is 3 of the 5 places that Donnie said he saw these creatures, I was able to pull hair samples myself. And they compare magnificently to the other hair samples that we have that can't be identified. If you watch that first Donnie Miller film, you'll see a brief hair comparison. That's Donnie's hair compared with the hair we've been finding in Central Florida. It's all a part of that spring belt, right? What makes this film cool is now we're getting into what happened when we were there. And what happened the first time I got out of the truck and walked down to the creek and pointed my camera up, somebody was up on that ridge and they let off a roar. Check this out. Here's something you don't want to hear the first time you walk into the forest 9 miles in the middle of nowhere. So at that point, I started second guessing what was going on up in front of me here, because it was plain. It came ripping through this hollow from up there, that scream. And I was like, we just got here, and it seemed to me that there was one of them up there that saw our trucks pull in. And when I got out and started coming, that's what happened, that big roar, that big yell. Keep in mind, no one knew we were going to this spot. Not even me. One of the first things that you notice about the areas that Donnie has had these encounters is they're off the beaten path. His own property is 9 miles in the middle of nowhere, but this place, Donnie had encounters in the planted pines.
This hand and about the knee down behind the tree, and like he was standing out looking at me. He was standing upright, and there was a big vine coming down, and it was right there beside him. When I spun back around, I seen the tree, I seen the vine coming down. There was no Sasquatch, and it's 30 yards maybe from me. As I was looking, trying to figure out what I seen, I thought maybe it was, I seen a picture on the internet, and it was reminding me of that. And that's when down here in the swamp, there were 3 loud bangs on a tree, just incredibly loud, and it was wood on wood, bam, bam, bam. And I turned, nothing there, I left. I didn't finish my stalk, I went straight back to my chair. Set it up, it's got 4 feet on it, and you gotta kind of bounce on the supports that go around the base of it from leg to leg to get them down in the ground a few inches. And then in the center, the horizontal tube that's welded to each leg, you put like a drill type, a screw type anchor goes in the ground, and then it's got a ratchet that hooks to that tube, and you ratchet it, and that's what keeps it from blowing over in the wind. And one of the feet, we couldn't get it to go down in the ground, so Chris and I both got on it. Chris is probably 170 pounds, I'm 245. And we're bouncing, we got it to go down a little bit, but it wasn't enough to get it down. So we had to finagle it. We finally got it level. It was extremely sturdy. We hunted out it several times. A few weeks passed, I went back up there to hunt out of it, and the whole thing was leaning. The side that we couldn't get down was pushed all the way in the ground to where the tubing, that horizontal tubing that went around the base of it, was touching the dirt. The one side was completely compressed. The stanchions that connected them were bent, and then some of the tubes, the cross members going up supporting it, those steel tubes, a lot of them are bent, like something was, pulling on them, excessive weight. But that tomorrow sometime we'll go over there and I'll show you guys where it got damaged. But that, when that happened, there was absolutely no claw marks, no footprints anywhere around it. Nothing was changed. It just, the frame, the steel is bent all the way around on it. There's bends on the upright, the big tube that goes up to the platform. It's got a slight bend in it, and there's no dent marks. It wasn't struck with anything. It's just really odd. All four of the ratchets that hook to the anchors, when you crank them down, all four of them were loose.
What do you think? What do you think was in there doing that, man?
Whatever it was, it far exceeded the weight of me and Chris combined, which was 245 and 170, somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 pounds. It far exceeded that weight, but it drove the feet into the ground to the point that the cross members that are normally about 8 inches above the ground, they were smashed into the ground. But I took a baseball, an oyster shell, and these little aquarium stones. It's just glass, some clear ones and some blue ones. And I set all this stuff in a little area. There was a tree that fell many years ago, and it rotted away. But the stump is there, the root part where it popped out of the ground. So it was perfect. I could set the items, in different areas of the roots. When I came back a week or so later to check it, and this I did film. When I come back in there, the blue rocks, the aquarium stones, were always gone. The clear ones, I thought one of them was taken, but then I found that it was just knocked off. The blue ones were missing. The baseball was gone. And I went in looking for the baseball. There's a bunch of briars and stuff just past, a little west of where I put all these trinkets at. And there was strings, just like a bunch of shredded, like somebody took their shirt and ground it up into fiber strings. It was on everything. And sticky, nasty, and I found the cover to the baseball. It was just like a sheet of cloth. You could see the dents all in it where something chewed on it. But it wasn't cut. It wasn't like the sharp teeth the dog has where they actually slice it. It was just mashed up. And it had an oily feeling on the outside of it, the white part. The inside was sticky, and I think it may have been whatever is inside of them. But the stuff on the outside, I think it was slobber, from being in the mouth, but it was rank. I mean, it was the worst feet I've ever smelled on a human being before. Nasty feet. That was the odor was getting off, but it had like a petroleum smell too. The stringy stuff, I had a lot of people contact me and said that's what they put on the inside of the baseball. But it was strung out 15 or 20 feet. It was all over the bushes and the limbs. I did take the cover of the ball. I didn't get the stringy stuff because it was really sticky. It had like a glue on it.
Man.
But that was, I didn't do that gift, and that was it. I stopped. It was 3 of us this time. We rode up and we set camp. We had one little tent we shared. Rode our bikes. My buddy Mike and his younger brother, they had brand new bicycles, Mongoose. Mike had a Mongoose. I wanted it, couldn't afford them. And our family, parents were the greatest in the world, but they worked hard to support us. My daddy really worked hard. And so I would go out and do odd jobs to get what I wanted. And found a bicycle at a yard sale. Piece of junk. Every part was from a different bike. It was just garbage. And it outlasted any bike I've ever owned. But back then, a little BMX bike. I had that. Mike and Steve had jam-up bikes. Really nice. What all the kids wanted. So we rode the bikes back there. We got our tent set up. And we were close to the area where I was hitting the back. Probably 100 yards, maybe. We had our bicycles just 5 feet or so from the front of the tent. And mine didn't even have a kickstand on it. I'd have to lean it up against stuff, or I'd just lay it down. And the 2 brand new ones, and then my jalopy. And we had sounds all night around the tent, walking. A couple times it sounded like somebody was like dragging something down if you ever run your finger down a tent, it has a weird sound to it. I don't know the sound. I can't explain it. But just take tent material and run your fingernail down it. It's got like a zipping sound, but we would hear it. And this went on all night, and then it'd go quiet. You'd hear footsteps, but if you zip one of the little windows, there was nothing out there. We were thinking of people sneaking around. It started out bears, and we were laughing and scaring each other. And then Mike was talking about the ghosts in the area from the people that were killed out there, and nobody was killed out there. But as kids, it was just getting that fear factor, scaring each other, and we were just having a good time. We didn't drink, we didn't mess with anything, and just having a good time. We get up the next morning and go outside the tent, and my bicycle's gone. The two high dollar, top of the line bicycles were there. Mine's gone. And I think it was $5 or something I give for the bike. And the forks were from a different bike. The handlebars were from a different bike. The tires were mixed match. It was a true scrap bike, but it was reliable. The brakes were horrible on it. It made clicking noise. It was just junk, but the bike was gone. We got out. We got the tent put together. I was mad because my bike was gone, but we were laughing at the same time. But inside it bothered me. Back then $5 was a lot of money. When you're a kid and you don't have it. Well, we got out on the trail trying to figure out how we're going to do this, because we got a tent and we got these little cheap Walmart sleeping bags, and they're thick, fluffy material that does fine unless it gets below 60 and then you freeze. So we got all this mess trying to figure out how to put it together, and then me be able to ride on the bike. They're BMX bikes. They got a little small seat on them. And we happened to look, one of the trees on the same side of the trail where our tent was, it was like a scrub oak. And 15 foot maybe, my bicycle was on the top of the tree. Like somebody had laid it like a pancake and then tossed it up there. And it took a while. We got it down, but we didn't hear it. And there should have been some type of noise, because it was close enough. If someone would have been there talking, just like I'm talking now, we would have heard it very, very loudly. And we never heard anything. And there my bike was, way up in the tree.
Happened to me as a field investigator for this species is what happened when Donnie was across the edge of the creek on the other side, and I was on this side where the Bigfoot was, and he was where he was, and he said, "Yep, right about there." And I was right next to this tree. It was right here, and the branches above me. And when I went like this and turned my head, there was something touching my hat, and I looked, and it was hair, and it was caught in the tree above me, and I pulled it out, and there were hairs all tangled. And Donnie was yelling, "Yeah, it was standing right there."
Oh yeah, see, that's the stuff right there, buddy. Hey,
It's
bring
right
it.
here.
Where was it?
It's right here. Hey, look, there's more right there. Short.
Let me see what
I
you
don't
got.
know. You see that one right there?
Oh yeah, it's across your hand, yeah.
Yeah, here's some right here too.
This means the creature was standing right there in the camp. And if it's this easy to find unidentifiable 22-inch hairs in the state of Florida, what are we talking about?
Those are some big, long hairs, buddy. Let's
Tangled
take
up
them
on
and we'll look at them under my my camera and see if we can confirm they're the same as the other ones.
That's weird.
Donnie's samples compare perfectly to the samples we've been finding for 8 years.
What you doing, old man?
Raining.
You want to come in? Are you hanging out or are you leaving?
No, I'll be leaving in a little while. I looked at the weather. It's going to be stopped here in about 30 minutes, 20,
Okay.
30 minutes. Be dry until 6 or 7. I think 6 o'clock. It's going to rain a little bit, then it'll be dry.
In the morning or tonight?
Tonight. It's
Oh, okay.
got one more little shower coming through.
Okay.
It's not showing it as intense as this one.
Okay.
This was 100% on this shower. The next one's 60.
Okay.
But it's not we don't have a heavy rain warning.
So we'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine. The next
I'm
rain
glad
is,
we took the camp down.
It's like 30% tomorrow at 10 and 11 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
But that's it after this.
Well, I'm gonna get the mattress all taken down and bagged back up and put back, and I'm gonna be ready to go, man. You know what I mean?
Heck yeah. If anything happens, you guys are welcome to come to the house.
Oh, we appreciate that. You never know out here, man. We don't know what's out here yet.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is a lot of crazy stuff is out here.
You know? There ain't no way around it. Ain't no way to sugarcoat it. It scares me. And
I don't
once
doubt
we get everything cleared, what we're gonna I'm not clearing all of it unless we have to. But once we get the road finished, we get the area cleared where we're gonna put the house. I think once we're here, the dogs are here. You know, that's the secondary alert system, having them out. And I think it'll I'm hoping they'll just get adjusted to us being here and not cause any problems. I don't care if they're out hooting and hollering. I don't want to have problems with them, you know.
Yeah, especially with all them goats.
Yeah. Me and Jeff Townsend went to an area about 3 miles east of where we live right now, and walking around, there's tons of signs of something being in there. There were broken trees, but they were laid in a way that it was almost like a maze. You know, like it was designed to kind of push what I would think would be deer, push them into a certain area for like an ambush. We were walking around looking at that, and on the other side there's a really wide game trail that come out of that. A deer trail is normally about that wide, and this thing was, I mean, it was a wide path, but there were no tracks on it, deer tracks. And it went from that area up into the thicket. Jeff and I went up in there. Once you get up to a certain point, that big trail, it branches off and it goes to the right, and it kind of dead ends about 10 foot in front of us. And I just happened to turn my head toward the right, and I see this something black shoot across the trail down 50, 60 yards from us. But it was at the speed of a bird flying. But it was very low to the ground, but large and black, super fast, and it went through the palmettos. We heard it. It made a lot of noise, and anyhow, a few minutes later, we're easing up, and there's a dark spot. Jeff points out a dark spot that's at the base. There's a small tree. I don't remember if it's an oak or not. There's a small tree there, a lot of shrubbery, and there was a dark spot by it. We're 30 feet or so from it, and I couldn't see it. Jeff was so much higher, you could see over the brush. We moved around, got a little closer, and then I could see it. Well, I got it on my phone, and I was zooming in, and it had pointed ears. And I told Jeff, you know, the ears are pointed like a bat. That's what it looked like. When Jeff circled around to my left, he's got the rifle on it, and that's when he could physically see it. I mean, he was looking right at it, and it looked like a black German Shepherd, but it was squatted down, and it had what looked like hands, but he had them bent like that in front of him. But he'd look at Jeff, and then he'd turn and look at me, and well, I filmed it. I could see him on my phone screen, and we did film it. With it got to the point I was ready to go. There were no bad feelings coming off of it, but seeing something like that, it was too much for me. I told Jeff, so I want to go back to the wet area, what we call the little lake. And so he told me to go ahead and go down there. So I turned and started backing out. Jeff stayed there. He's got a long gun, a rifle on it, and he's aiming at it. Well, when I started easing back down, it started setting up, watching me as I was walking off. And Jeff was looking right at it when it was doing that. And it's about 20 feet in front of Jeff. But it got to a certain point, rising up. It got up pretty high. It wasn't standing up yet, but it got up, you know, I mean, it's probably that high its head. And then it must have realized that I was alone walking away from it. It didn't see Jeff, and it just kind of turned its head and seen Jeff, and that thing shot down to the ground really low, squatted way low. And Jeff had the rifle on him. But we left out of there both of us got real creeped out. We got by that little lake and it got dark on us and we're trying to get to the car. Well, Jeff was leading the way. He's got the rifle, he's got the pistols and the light, so I'm behind him filming, and I told him, I said, Jeff, I feel like I got eyes on me, like we're being watched, and he had the same feeling. Well, he's leading the way back to the truck, and I happened to turn and look behind me, and there was an opening. When we come in, we were going to go around that wet spot, that little lake, and there's a huge pine tree, and then there's a big opening right there where you can go past the tree and around the lake. In that opening was a gigantic figure, like a man standing there, and he was rocking like this, staring at us. And Jeff looked at him in the binoculars, and I tried to film it, but it was just a black blur. I could not zoom in on it. It was not clear. The tree was clear, the brush was clear. He was very blurry, but I believe it was a Sasquatch. Jeff looked at him in the binoculars and said it was. And he thinks it was around 10 or 11 foot in height. It was definitely larger than 8 foot. But we had turned and started trying to get to the truck as fast as we could. We weren't but 100 yards from the truck, and we started getting whistles coming from the side, and they were coming from all around us, and then you can hear the bipedal footsteps. We were being surrounded.
That's a long 100 yards right there.
Yeah, we got to the truck. Well, I had to unlock it. I had the keys. Jeff stood on the passenger side, and he could hear what sounded like two of them were running through the brush coming toward him. And Jeff had said something on the lines, you step out, I'm going to fill you full of lead. And I mean, Jeff would have shot. As soon as he had said that, whatever was coming stopped. It went silent. But they were whistling, they were talking to each other, and it was so strange. Where we seen that big one and where we seen that werewolf type thing, it was only 70 or 80 yards between the two of them. And Jeff believes that these werewolf creatures may have called or summoned the big guys to come in. I believe that. I do believe there was a connection between them because they were both in the same area, a very small area. But the werewolf thing, I don't think he would have been over maybe 5 foot, maybe, when he stood up. But it was definitely larger than a German Shepherd. Was not a German Shepherd. It had a very different look to it. But it was watching both of us. And you could see his eyes. You could see the eyebrows move just like a dog's eyebrow. You can see them moving, but it had a fake look. It looked like
did it have a Chihuahua snout or a wolf snout?
No, it was longer. It was like a German Shepherd snout. It had more roundness to it. It was thicker, but it was a long snout, and the ears were pointed. And he would lay the ears back, and it was creepy. But we finally got to the truck. I got it unlocked and cranked, and we just laid rubber down and got out of there. But that was, according to Jeff, all his outings, that was the very first time he actually seen something, and we got to see two different creatures that night, and that was a rough one.
Wow, that was like literally one of the most traumatic things I've ever heard, man. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's seen a lot of stuff, and we're sitting right here, and there he goes, and now we're alone. Alright guys, so what we have is a situation where the creatures can be on both sides of us. The creatures can be on all four sides of us, and that's not a situation that I like being in. What we've done is we've driven to the end of a little teardrop turnaround at the end of a 9-mile road into the forest, and really this one's a couple miles, I think, cut off of that one. So all I can tell you is there's noises already, stick snaps. A couple last night. Thought a rock was thrown last night, a big one. While I was in my tent, sounded like a rock hit a rock in the ground. Sounded exactly like a big rock hitting a rock that was stuck in the ground, right? So like it was something that was in that had been walked on and driven over, but it sounded like a big one, softball size, baseball to softball size, smacked into it. Then something hit my tent. I heard walking. Things that correlate to the descriptions of the activity and the incidents that Donnie has witnessed in here. Except for Sasquatch, they are apprehensive. They're not used to people, and they're taking their time. But this is night 2.